Wow, this is a big one today. Welcome everybody to Open Class Doodles, episode 24, Tactical Doodles for Success for creators, performers, artists, actors, entertainers, free thinkers, visionaries, dreamers, pirates, people like us, everyday people that want finally to kind of stand up and communicate their ideas, but also people who want to be entertained and also to look at the craft of acting, of performing, of art in general from maybe a different perspective. So welcome everybody to the COACHMC studio. This is the place where we'll help you actors, performers, entertainers, like I said, to shape unique, very compelling and intriguing behavior deliveries, and where we'll help you to get recognized in the audition room, no matter what you're auditioning for and no matter where you audition and where your audition takes place. And you know me by now, right? I love to kind of dive deep in all sorts of topics and beautiful themes of different interests, fields of interest. Why? Because I think everything kind of adds up to the overall knowledge. Everything kind of adds up to the beauty of understanding the universe, yourself, your craft, and what you want to do, right? What is your purpose here? How can you entertain people? How can you make this life worth living? So therefore, today you might think, isn't this a bit slightly off topic, talking about brand-related content? But I don't think so. It's all about storytelling, right? We covered in many episodes the beautiful myths of Greek mythology and those ancient tales and incredible and fascinating folklore coming to us from ancient antiquity. And today we're gonna dive even deeper to search for even more ancient and more mysterious stories, because these stories inform us. Mythology, history, ancient history, and that that line where we trespass from the unconscious to the conscious. This is the horizon where we want to invest in our research, because this is where we get the critical mass that we then can propose to the audience, or how we can enrich in our lives. So without any further ado, let's dive into the tale of stone and what ancient ruins can tell us about ancient history and what kind of secrets they keep. And today's episode features two of my favorite human beings that we know very well over here on YouTube from the Saturday Night Hypnosis panel. And so without any further ado, we're gonna jump in this beautiful Open Class Doodle episode 24 with Dragon Slayer commentaries and with my man Ryan Roger Athey from Reality Based in just a second. So let's see what's cooking. Incredible. So let's welcome them with a warm round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. Dragon Slayer commentaries and Ryan Roger Athey. Please introduce yourself to the chat, to the Facebook and Instagram community, to the creative community over here at the Coach.
Well, to be a bit jovial, ladies first.
Oh, you're already going
right off the bat.
Well, guys, my name is Dragon Slayer from Dragon Slayer Commentaries. I make sarcastic video commentary on basically anything coming out of the Hollywood dumpster fire lately, but I sometimes talk about the good stuff and also join streams like this with my man, the Coach MC, and even Ryan Roger Athey when I want to talk about other topics that are not in the pop culture Hollywood sphere, because I'm not a one-trick pony. I do like to talk about other stuff. I just specialize in my sarcasm on my channel, but I do like to talk about these topics. But yeah, that's me.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Ryan Roger Athey, please take away, good sir.
Well, hello everyone. I hope you're all doing well, and it's great to see you all watching today, whether it's live or on the replay. My name is Ryan Roger Athey. I am the host and founder of Reality Based, and it's great to be able to talk with the man of the hour, the man with the power, as it were, the Coach MC studio, as well as Dragon Slayer Commentaries, who is a second-rate version of every panelist of Saturday Night Hypnosis.
Oh my God, here we go.
And the color commentator of this stream, to use a wrestling reference. But it's great to see everyone in the chat. Hopefully plenty of folks are lurking, and fingers crossed you will all enjoy this show, because I'm writing down timestamps, because you never know. The best way to advertise a channel is to take the best bits, or in my case, all the bits, chop them up into videos, put the link to the main show in question, and it's a great way of advertising this wonderful channel, criminally underrated, a man who may not be the master of content creation, but he is the master of entertainment as a whole. 35 years worth of experience in the field of acting and entertaining. And we need more people like Coach to be content creators, to be that bridge between the entertainment establishment, the part of it that isn't rotten to the core, and the hub of content creation where there is so much potential that needs to be forged and honed. So here's to a great talk about all things historical, the tales of stone, as Coach said, and I might as well give it back to you, my good man.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a beautiful intro. I think you set the mood quite right for tonight. It's a tale in stone. It's a beautiful tale because we are somehow, of course, always surrounded by our ancestors, by their tales, by their architecture, by their lore, by their, there are many stories from the past, whether it's in written form or an oral tradition, right? Sometimes even through tarot, drawings, paintings, right? There are many ways of telling a story. And over here at the COACHMC studio, as you know it by now, if you're new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe and like this stream today, because it goes such a long way to support our endeavors. And of course, jump to these bigots as well, to these beautiful human beings who took, out of their very precious schedule some time to kind of assist this madness of diving deep. I mean, Dragon Slayer already did a couple of times follow the ring. Ryan Roger is the first time on this type of show, and I want to
only when Atreus is around, Coach. Only when Atreus is around.
I want to say also hello to Vincinger, aka El Otaku, aka the Weep Pillar. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you so much, Rosita Macarons, for being here. Again, thanks also to the Facebook and Instagram crowd of being here. You are more than welcome to join us over here on YouTube as well, right? And once you're here, just smash the like button, like I said, because it goes, again, also a long way to show YouTube what you guys value. This is a paradigm shift in history, in entertainment history and culture in itself. We're seeing things kind of falling apart and being rebuilt. Phoenix rises from the ashes, and this is a new time also of communication, of art, of proposing entertainment and good content. And so from this side of this digital world, right, from the content creation side, we really much appreciate your support that we can get, because it shows the algorithm what you guys value and how you want to kind of form this new world of entertainment, what you want to have in it, because we're the builders of this new cathedral of entertainment and success. So let's use this potential. Let's use this opportunity. Mm-hmm. Today, like I said, it's a beautiful tale in stone, and it again, it's so fascinating because we're maybe looking at something that is just in the early stages of being like truly explored on a granular level. And again, if you look at the implications right off the bat, right now, where we do know just shrapnels of wisdom, and we're gonna illustrate in a couple of seconds what we're talking about. If we just look at this first initial layer of stuff that we have uncovered so far regarding this topic, the tale in stone, then this is already super explosive and kind of mind-blowing. I can't even fathom what's going to happen in 20, 30 years when we have really even more knowledge, more excavations, more archaeological founds, and more translations going on about this very interesting tale that we have to propose today. So what is it that we're going to talk about? So this is the doodle for today, and this is our ancient ruins that we find pretty much all over the globe. And I have created some sort of a link here that over time, that I came across over time, curating different authors and research groups and different YouTube channels and different books that I've read. And there seems to be an incredible connection between the constellation of Cygnus and those really ancient ruins that we're going to talk about in today's episode, Open Class Doodles, episode 24. We're talking about ruins that, towards the most conservative estimate of time, are at least 16,000, 17,000 before Christ. So that was in the middle of an incredible geological upheaval, The ice age was hitting its peaks in certain regions of this world, in others it wasn't. And it seems like that, because I was always fascinated about the idea of finding a link that could bring all these ruins together, because they are so similar, so eerie similar, no matter where you go on this planet. And yes, there is the Graham Hancock proposal that there were all warnings about ancient cataclysms, and definitely there is also some credence to that. But I thought I always assumed, also through personal experience, that there must be some sort of a spiritual meaning also to these buildings, and not only, you know, some sort of timestamps when things are happening, not just observatories per se. There must be something that is heavily linked also to the spiritual side of our existence here on planet Earth, because these cultures, these ancient cultures, were all deep believers, deep researchers, and they had this, everywhere you would look, they had this connection to the stars, to the exploration of death and life, and where the soul may travel. And so I always thought these ruins somehow must be also connected to an spiritual or almost religious aspect. And over time, I found out there was this interesting mystery that connects the constellation of Cygnus and its brightest star, the Deneb star, that we can find everywhere, also in Greek mythology, right? When we have the beautiful tale of Zeus and Leto, which we, with Dragon Slayer, kind of explored a bit more granularly, when Zeus was kind of, you know, bringing together his conspiracy in over 25 years to kind of, you know, reduce mankind through the Battle of Troy, when he visited the beautiful princess Leto to kind of, as a white swan, right? Because Cygnus is il cigno in Latin, which is the swan. And so we have this idea of the white swan or the black swan as a bad event throughout history, whether that was in Russia, we have the dead swan ballet, or through also the idea that the swan somehow is connected to the ancient to the tombs of these neo-Christian worshippers, right? They believe that the Holy Ghost was somehow also a bird, a white swan or a white dove, and later on. But in its early tradition, it was actually a white swan, which is also an important animal for the Freemasons and their rituals. And we find the idea of the white swan, the Cygnus constellation, being a very important one also in Egypt and everywhere else. And so I thought, is there a connection that connects spirituality, religion, society, their beliefs through these buildings with that constellation? And what is ultimately the narrative of that constellation? And so therefore, welcome everybody to these ancient ruins and the Cygnus Key mystery.
Well, it's very interesting you bring up swans, Coach, because I know in the United Kingdom there is a deep reverence for swans. In fact, the authorities make it quite clear that no one outside the royal family may hunt and utilize the swan for their purposes, highlighting their significance. A very deep historical connection, considering they were the bird of the royal, as it were. But you could insinuate within that there is a deeper connection. And it just goes to show, Coach, despite being a second or third language English speaker, as well as writer too, by the looks of it, you've held yourself very well, and you provided a very detailed analysis. And hopefully we can dive deep into this. It would be great to get Dragon's perspective, but he's probably drunk.
He's always drunk. He's a dragon. He takes baths in his gold, vault that he has in his basement. It's filled with all these beautiful doubloons and all these old gold coins. So therefore, he has no time to speak to us humans. And we are these peasants, right? And so therefore, I can understand. But yeah, let's dive deep into that, and let's see where I want to start the story. So everything, like always, in a way, starts in Egypt. Egypt is a very fascinating country in terms of what we have in remains of stone. And of course, we know by the pyramid texts and also by the Edfu texts, by the Edfu buildings texts that are engraved in stone, right? They made sure that these texts survive, right? And so they made sure that these two important compendiums kind of survived the stamp of time, because they wanted to communicate something very, very important to them, to the later generations. And I stumbled over the work of Mr. Rodney Hale, who is a very interesting researcher who developed a program to see stars and constellations and how they would behave. And he found out that, this constellation of Cygnus, in certain very important, of course, intervals, declaring midwinter solstice or the spring solstice, right? That the three main stars of that beautiful wing of Cygnus facing north would actually set exactly on the apex, on the pyramidion of each pyramid in Egypt. And more so that the whole Memphis necropolis, this is actually how the plateau of the pyramids of Giza are actually called. It's part of the Memphis necropolis, that it would look almost like Cygnus would travel over this plateau and then set down, right? And those three main stars of the wings would set above in the horizontal view, but also from the vertical view, exactly on the apex of these incredible monuments. And so I was interested in why that could be. What is the connection? Because usually we know the pyramids of Giza being connected to the Orion girdle, right? We have the book from Graham Hancock and Robert Duval and Robert Schloss. There are many, many researchers who wrote about this. What's the name of the guy from NASA, the slightly older guy? Well, I mean, many researchers who wrote about this, what the connection between the Orion girdle and the pyramids of Giza are, and somehow how that whole plateau is in the middle of all land masses, right? If you would, put all land masses together from planet Earth, from the northern hemisphere, and then you would kind of go through the plateau of Giza, you would have a perfect division, a perfect split between the land masses of the west and of the east. So there are fascinating things happening here, but it seems like that from the so-called sarcophagus chamber, or the king chamber, but it's not really a king's chamber. It seems to be completely different. Inside, in the middle, placed in the middle of the pyramid of Giza here, of the Cheops pyramid, it seems like that out of that sarcophagus, the Cygnus travels first north and then stops and then goes out to the north entrance of the pyramid. And by the way, all entrances of the pyramid show due to north. So in a way, they imitate with these buildings the path of Cygnus during the midwinter solstice, crossing the sky, crossing the Milky Way, and then moving north to the North Polar star, right, to the real center of the northern hemisphere of stars constellation, which is a really crazy feature to think of if you want to immortalize such an incredible and difficult astrological movement into buildings that are 146 meters tall and made of 2.5 million stones, right? So
it's a monumental achievement to even construct such wonders, even by modern standards. It's not a coincidence that it was designed that way, built that way, the three of them. It is beyond a coincidence for that to have been made. These ancient civilizations that we are aware of have a deep, impactful knowledge that has been gradually lost with our embracing of not only agriculture, but industry, services, and now the age of technology. So the more this is investigated, the better. And Coach provides it in a very artistic manner, and I'd expect nothing less from a man of the arts.
Yeah, I told you. And one interesting thing is we also have to understand that a lot of these ancient monuments, their positioning, besides obviously being linked to certain constellations, they were designed in a very mathematical way. So if you look at the scientific geometry and even the you could say sacred geometry side of things, either or, honestly, whichever you prefer, the result still remains the same, that whoever designed it knew exactly what kind of blocks of stone they wanted to be brought in from whatever quarry. A lot of these stones, if you weren't aware, they have certain types of usually quartz crystals or other types of
Yes.
energy inducing crystals that emit a very faint electromagnetic signal, okay, or a frequency, if you will. And
Absolutely.
so a lot of these ruins as well, they're located in areas of planet Earth where scientists have determined that they are what's called electromagnetic convergence points, or if you want to sound like the mystical groups, how they were called in the past, they were called ley lines, but in
Ley
reality they're just electromagnetic convergence points.
And they
And
knew about
yeah,
this. This is
they
the
did.
incredible.
They knew about it. And
And
the insane part is a lot of these ruins, most people had no idea. For example, with Göbekli Tepe, it's assumed that it's at least 9,600 years old. Okay,
that's very,
sorry,
very
not 9,000. So it goes as far back as 9,600 BC. Let me correct
BC,
myself.
exactly.
Yeah, and a lot of these designs on the stone pillars, not only do they depict certain types of animals, but also the way they were designed. It seems that whoever made them wanted to point out not only a certain timeline of, like, maybe to warn of, when a disaster would happen, but also to make, if you will, a historical record. Like,
Yeah.
at the time this building was made, whoever was the original builder, they wanted to let people know that this was made during the age of, I forget which I think
That
it
was-
was actually sickness. I think it was sickness, or when the constellation of sickness, or I don't remember which constellation it was over the sky of that observatory at the time. And the
Yes.
only reason we found this place so well preserved is, hey, Sonia, hello everybody in chat. By the way, I just wanted to say that real quick.
Annie,
That's how it was
hey,
discovered.
everybody.
Yeah.
Lovely to have you here.
It was discovered because
By Sonia Dragon. It was discovered by Sonia. You were
Oh,
saying.
she did it.
Yes. Sonia, yes. So the crazy thing about Göbekli Tepe is the way it was discovered is it was just found by complete coincidence, as usual, by your local shepherd boys or
Shepherd,
random person.
always.
Yeah,
By
they're
a
just-
wishing tree.
It's kind of the narrative they always they always put out of the cylinder, right? Oh yeah, it's a shepherd, like in Naj Hammadi. It's always a shepherd that
Yeah.
kind of stumbles over this in the the monuments of Troy, the ruins of Troy. Incredible. And this might interest you, Dragon Slayer. So again, this is not some
Okay.
speculation, guys. The Egyptians themselves, they have the pyramid texts that for them are sacred. If you try to get them, there are books about the more or less, like, actual translation of this, but it's just they tell you exactly that they believe that there is this god of dead, right, which is Osiris, right? He's dead. He's a god that is dead. He is he's the god of the underworld. It's something that we could call Hades, translated into Greek mythology, right, or Pluto into Roman mythology. And they believe that you, at dusk, you travel out of the womb of the woman, which is Nuet, which looks a little bit like a bird that is kind of encompassing the tabernacle, right? She's enclosing, like she's spanning over the dome, right? And you, out of her, out of the egg of Nuet, out of the sarcophagus, you travel east and then you ascend into heaven. So the pharaoh that would die, he would be, placed in there at dusk, so he at dawn could fly out of north, and then he would travel through the Duat, which is the underworld. It's the Egyptian underworld. This is where we get the terminology of duality or dual from, or the duel, right? And it's imagined as the path of the sun at night that goes under the belly of Nuet or the tabernacle. And then it comes up again and then emerges via the Akkad into the pre-dawn sky. And here it encounters Orion. This is Sa, or Sar. He is the age of life, right? And also very interesting, in the belt of Orion, scientists claim to have discovered one of the first kind of incubation centers of this galaxy, right? They believe in there, where the old Egyptians believed that the underworld should be located, they believe that there is some sort of one of the hot spots of creation of this universe, one of the oldest spots, right? So it's kind of interesting how that also kind of resonates in actual science and research. And Sotpek, Sirius, right, would become Orion. The brother and the sister would unite and would get the soul out of the body and would place it into the constellation of Cygnus. Here we have also the Ben or the Bennu, which is a holy, the holy bird for the Egyptians. They believe that the pyramidion that is missing in Egypt so far is part of that Phoenician ritual of that phoenix that rises. And here we have again a Cygnus type of bird, right? And they say that in this town of Heliopolis, Heluan, the old Heliopolis, already 8,000 before Christ, there was this primeval type of enclosure, these buildings, these roundly shaped structures. And Klaus Schmidt from the LMU University in Munich, very, very interesting guy, and he connects us also to Göbekli Tepe later. He discovered through the Edfu text as well that this bird is to be believed the carrier of the soul. So for the Egyptians, and also for the old people living before them, when we're talking about 8,000, 9,000 BC, the idea of that birdman bringing the soul and taking it away was already like a very established, very rooted type of belief, spiritual, religious belief, and it was always connected to the Cygnus constellation.
The more you know, the better, especially in regards to history as ancient as this, ladies and gentlemen, because without this knowledge, we don't know our origins. And speaking as a content creator, creator origins are the foundation, because if you know how someone starts, you know how to keep on going, you know how to keep on growing. Human beings, in a sense, don't have a confirmed origin story, which is a great disadvantage,
Yes.
especially when you compare it potentially to the synthetic, to the machine, which
Yes.
if it does wake
Very
up,
interesting point.
maybe
Yeah.
it's woken up already, I don't know. But
Probably.
when it does awake, it knows how it started. So it knows its foundation to
Yes.
build a house, to go to the stars, that sort of thing. So that's a built-in disadvantage for human beings. So you never know. We may be in a cycle, every 10, 20, 50,000 years where we have our time to shine, then someone comes along and scoops it all away. A great reference would be Mass Effect. I don't know if you know it, Coach. Maybe you do, Dragon, but it is an interesting reference. Every 50,000 years, civilizations rise, and then a force comes along to sweep you all away, so a new generation can take your place, and it goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there's been like always a lot of stories about the origin of mankind, from like the mythological to the more I would say the more alternative theories. I'll say it like that, because I don't really believe in like the whole concept of conspiracy theory, because unfortunately everyone, the US government came up with that shit in order to deflect from anything when somebody asked them a question,
Well, as
And-
far as I'm aware, Dragon, there are two main origins of humanity that most folks would be aware of. Of course, there's the evolution theory and the creation theory. When most people say that, they think you're a bit controversial, but at the end of the day, they are both theories of being, whether we were created by a supreme being or whether we were created because unknown mass and unknown energy blew up to create the universe we exist in today, rather. And to me, so I can get back on track, they both sound like theories of creation to me. So it seems that it's just creation myths fighting each other.
Absolutely. We know exactly that the theory of evolution, it came out of the Lunar Society in Birmingham, and that Watts, Darwin, Huxley, Galton, Wedgwood, these fine folks that constructed that mechanical worldview. And later on with the Fabian Society, George Bernard Shaw, the Orwells, and everything else in London, they kind of built this new theory how everything should. And they also pushed the agenda for the God molecule and the Big Bang theory. They actually, Gaultier, a Jesuit priest who was in that Fabian Society type of circle, he was the one who coined that expression of having some sort of a Big Bang. And Einstein had to follow that theory and had to just bark and just repeat like a parrot. Otherwise, they wouldn't have accepted his immigration status into the United States. So he was very depending on kind of supporting that theory. It's a very interesting spin of things that if you look at it, everything that we call the construct of reality that we get taught by academia and universities worldwide, it just comes out of a very exclusive club of a couple of elitarian old guys that wanted to create the new paradigm, the new status quo. But also coming here, Lisa was saying, hey, everybody, great. The Egyptians, the feather in the heart. She refers, of course, to the dead ritual, right? When Anubis kind of takes over the dead, you know, with a feather, it gets measured if this heart is infested or tainted or not. If the feather isn't heavier than the heart, then you know the dead soul may pass into paradise, into a quieter realm. Otherwise, it gets sent into the dark corners of the underworld. We have the Sahara Desert. Yes, absolutely. So there is this Sahara Desert turns green, right? 10,000 or so years. There could be civilization we have no idea about. Yeah, absolutely. We have ground penetrating radar that shows us that under the Sahara Desert, also in Sudan, there are roughly 200 pyramids that are not excavated up beneath the desert sand. And but there is this cross pollution between the Amazon and the Sahara Desert. So every time the Amazon is green, Sahara is dry. When Sahara is green again, the Amazon will be dry again. So this is kind of, you know, back and forth.
It's interesting you say that because, like, I remember one time, I don't remember where I even found this, but like, I was just looking for some extra content in like the alternative space, and then I found supposedly like an audio voiceover that somebody did of a book that, or a journal entry or something that, according to someone from like a secret society, wrote that according to them they're revealing it through this voiceover because according to them it's time to reveal all, right? And one of the things they mentioned is that originally there were 666,666 pyramids that were at one point active on Earth. And the thing is, for most people that would sound ridiculous, but if you know anything about, you know, the sacred spiritual degrees, you know, the number 6 stands for basically the sixth, I'll call it density or dimension. Some people call it either or, but it's like the 6th spiritual realm where all knowledge resides, or in other words, the Akashic records. So right. So basically it's detailing the fact that with this exact number, it's representing the idea that when these pyramids were made, the individuals or the society that built them knew about their true not only physical origins but their spiritual origins and of who they truly were. And
Dragon, it's entirely possible for there to be that number of pyramids in a highly advanced civilization far beyond any of our understanding, in which each pyramid is the capital center of, say, the city or even town, in the same way that in the United Kingdom you're given, you know, city status if you have a cathedral, that kind of mindset. I don't know how many towns and cities there are in the world today, but you could say many tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of settlements if you add them all up. So maybe history is rhyming.
Thousands of pyramids, but there is just one open class masterclass about.
I love that.
It's just one. It's one of a kind. It's the 27th of April. Guys, register with the link right here or on Eventbrite. just join the community. It's going to be so much fun. I just want to take this opportunity because I see a lot of people online and we're thriving. I just want to take this little break to remind you guys, this is a performance storytelling channel. And therefore today we're, diving into the tale of Stone. On April 27th, we're going to dive into the tale of, deciphering the script as actors, as performers, as communicators, as public speakers. We need to extract the most precious stuff in the fastest amount, in the shortest amount of time out of the, the literature, out of the text, and kind of present our version, our style to it. And so if you want that competitive edge, if we're living in that society that needs to push ideas, that needs to communicate in an effective way, then definitely join us for this open class. Registration, like always, is for free. So definitely join us. It's going to be a hell of a time.
Excellent. I'm sure you will all enjoy.
Now here I show you something that's quite amazing.
Sure.
What?
Just to stay with the Egyptians for another second before we move on to Göbekli Tepe.
Ooh, yes. I remember seeing this one time. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead, sir.
No. Like one time, I remember watching Billy Carson go off of in a conference about exactly what you're showing in this diagram, and turns out
Richard Hoagland. I'm sorry, otherwise I would have forgotten the name again. Richard Hoagland was also one of the first to talk about this connection of signals and the pyramids. Go ahead. Sorry.
You're correct. And the thing is, if this diagram actually shows a part of it, but yeah, if you look at where the three Great Pyramids are located and you calculate the distance and circumference that they're away from other landmarks, like say a city or a town that was built near them, you can actually do like an exact mathematical equation of basically where they're pointing, where these pyramids are trying to point at, and at what point they were built, according to this mathematical equation. Now, if that's the case, it would, according to him and some other people, of course, isn't just him, but the guy's very obsessed with the mathematics of things. And one of the things that he mentioned is that these pyramids could, at least the Great Pyramid, the other two, they may have been built later, but the Great Pyramid essentially would have been built far longer ago. Like we're talking after the end of, say, maybe usually around the period of 12 to maybe, I'll be broad, 12 to 20,000 years ago, and it was probably built.
Yes, exactly.
It was most likely built at a time along with the Sphinx when the Sahara was actually a verdant area.
Before
it was
so 12,000 BC, roughly, right?
Exactly, yeah. So it was quite far back, and one of the functions that a lot of people believe this pyramid had. So this pyramid, the way these pyramids were built, or at least the Great Pyramid, a lot of people theorized that whoever built them originally meant for them to be multi-purpose. So not only was it a place for spiritual meditation, some people believed it also served a secondary purpose as in certain areas of the pyramid as a power plant. So the idea was that through the use of water manipulation by building proper aqueducts underneath the pyramid that were connected to a natural water spring underneath the earth, which ironically that spring is located in another electromagnetic convergence point.
Right, and it's surrounded by electro-conducting materials. Basically all over the globe. We're not just finding this in Egypt, and we're finding this also with Gothic cathedrals. They're always built on a spring, right?
Yeah, and they're meant to also, when you're inside of them, look beyond, guys, look, you don't have to go to the Great Pyramid to understand this very basic concept. You can literally go to, say, your local church, a church has been around for at least over 100 years, any cathedral you want. The second you walk in, what is the first thing that you notice that is perfect? That is the way the sound is amplified and the frequency of it. It's perfectly designed to so that your voice
harmonic
sounds powerful, but at the same time it reflects back at you, right? And there is some sort of divine messaging with that, but I'm not going to get into that yet. But to go back to the pyramid,
I knew you're such a precious addition to the knowledge, man. Because it's quite remarkable. You're totally right. It's harmonics, right? And it's very interesting here. Already with this is the simplest diagram. We have more complicated ones. We can show them too. But already here, it's quite interesting. So the Cygnus constellation touches the peaks, the pyramidions of each pyramid, right? So, like you said, if this is the oldest building, the Cheops pyramid is the oldest one. So they made sure to align even the younger ones perfectly to that, circle, half circle type of movement that is going on here. Now, the crazy thing about this is, of course, that besides of being more precise than the Orion belt alignment, this is if you kind of prolong the pole where the bird is coming from, you get to this the ancient town, like Klaus Schwab discovered, Klaus Schmidt, I'm sorry, who discovered also Göbekli Tepe. That is this town of Helouan. So from out the mount of Helouan, you could see down to the necropolis of Memphis. And in Helouan, you had exactly that. You had a spring, again, that was feeding the water channel to the necropolis of Memphis. And this is, again, also a common denominator, that all these cathedrals, all these holy buildings, even if we're going way back into time and we're just talking about very rough constructions and not so beautifully elaborated ones like the pyramids or the Gothic cathedrals that you can find in France and Italy and Germany, and also in England, of course. But even with those very rough buildings from really like Paleolithic times, there is always this association with water, with harmony, with the soul being this resonance object, and through the stone somehow they connected with the celestials, right? They connected with the heavens. And this is something that is it's a narrative that connects all these peoples, all these ancient cultures, even though geographically they weren't connected, which is, to me, truly fascinating.
I mean, the belief systems of humanity sprung up independently without any outside inspiration that we have been able to analyze so far as humanity, given our current state of affairs. It is that common denominator that's very clear to see, that belief systems sprung up all across the world, and we have not seen a single example of a civilization in ancient history arising that didn't have that belief system, that creation myth, as they would like to call it today, being
Right.
that bond that brings people together. It's only in recent times, 20th, 21st century, that institutions have manifested without belief in a deity in the conventional sense.
Yeah.
Here we have.
Oh wait, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Talk.
Okay, no, I was just wanting to point out, like, one thing I thought that was very interesting of as I was looking through Google Earth is that, oh Lord, it's kind of hard to do this through Google Earth, but if you kind of go through the way like the planet Earth's aligned, if you look at the Washington Obelisk Monument,
oh yeah,
like where it's located on our side of the globe, and then where the Great Pyramid of Giza complex is located at, you'll actually realize that it's like a perfect line that is sort of going back around to the pyramid. So
because Les Enfants, just to chip this in, Les Enfants, the French architect, I read a book about him, who was the main builder of the urbanistic blueprint of Washington, D.C. He was furious about the corrections that the Freemasons kind of inserted into his planning, because he could not understand certain decisions they made in terms of how they want to kind of, align the buildings and where they want to put the entrance portals. He would have placed most of the entrance portals south, but the Freemason circle that kind of co-founded Washington, D.C. insisted in kind of placing them north, which again is resonance of that Egyptian idea that through the north entrance the signals would take off, which in Freemasonry is actually not not welcome, because north in Freemasonry is always the point of death, right? So therefore they always avoid their temples to be aligned with north. But in this case, they kind of change the alignment, and speculations are, again, because we have the elliptic, we have the water, we have the obelisk, and we have, again, the alignment of the celestial cross, which could also very well be Cygnus. So maybe maybe someone in the chat likes to go down that rabbit hole and kind of finding out how Washington is connected to the constellation as well. But please go on. I didn't want to.
No, I was thinking this might interest you as well, Ryan. So if you weren't aware, so the Freemasons, it seems to be mainly confirmed by them lately, but the Freemasons were an offshoot of, or either a rebranding, if you will, if we're going to use modern terms, of the Templars. So unlike what most people, and they claim this themselves. It's not, they even have like people that have come out in like alternative media websites and such, where there's this guy that basically calls himself like the Templar Grandmaster, but obviously the garb they're wearing is that of Freemasonry, which Freemasonry is very deeply connected to Templars, because they were able, there seems to be some evidence that's been coming out lately that the Leif Erikson's Vikings weren't the only ones that discovered North America. It seems that some Templars, through the use of Portugal, its location in the old world, and by the way, the establishment of Portugal was heavily aided by the Templars. Their king,
absolutely, the government of Portugal it's a Templar.
The first king of Portugal was a literal inner circle Templar, and that's like a high honor. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, look at absolutely.
No,
the Templars of Portugal, also with the Huguenots and the French Huguenots, kind of came to America, and it's also before Columbus.
No, and the crazy thing is, if you look at the way the obelisk, the water fountain, and the Lincoln Memorial are located, if you look at it from like Google Earth, well, it's kind of hard to try, because like this thing, you can like turn it around as much as you want. But if you really focus on it, you can see that it's like mimicking the pyramids with the temple complex in between and the Sphinx. It's like it's behind those ancient monuments and pointing back to their point of origin of inspiration, to let those who basically at the time knew the secret arts or the secret knowledge, the occult knowledge, if you will, is hey, we are those who follow the teachings of old Chem. We are the inheritors of those who came long ago and survived the cataclysm or whatever. That's what I thought was interesting.
Yes, I believe that the Templars kind of came across that type of knowledge from the ones who survived the cataclysms, because this is scientifically also acknowledged by now, that there was a cataclysm, that when the Dry Ages period, the younger Dry Ages kind of, when that period stopped, and there were these huge flash meltings that were also strange, where there's different information about that, and that there was some sort of like a diluvial type of event that covered the surface of Europe and China. On this topic, I think Graham Hancock did great research, and again, check out his books, because they definitely kind of indicate that, and modern scientists, they tend to agree with that, because through the layer findings all over the globe, they came across pretty much the same type of layer. It seems like around 12,000 to 10,500 BC that there was this huge meltdown and a deep freeze in other places. So there was a Charles Hapgood that has in his book a foreword by Albert Einstein, right, that describes him the real true genius. Charles Hapgood talked about the magnetic shift, right, that the poles could all of a sudden switch and change their electromagnetic disposition, and therefore, areas that were warm or even almost Mediterranean could turn into deep freeze almost instantly through that. And so there is this theory. I just wanted to kind of show you guys a more accurate picture. Again,
what looks
crazy.
very, very interesting, Coach, from my analysis, is that when you see the whole area from up top, and then you look at computers, especially CPUs in that respect, it's rather uncanny, seeing, because a CPU would be a square from up top. Of course, the pyramids are a square from the bottom, and you can see smaller pyramids next to a few of the pyramids. You can also see tiny, from our perspective, tiny little buildings and areas. Of course, you see the Sphinx right there that looks a bit different than the surrounding area. When I see that, I see almost an ancient motherboard, but from a perspective that the ancients would never see, from our perspective. The resemblance is rather uncanny, especially linking something more modern to something more ancient. You could say it's a coincidence, but in regards to such topics, there are no coincidences, especially with all these different groups lurking in the shadows.
Yeah, I mean, Dragon, why are we doing this? I mean, we are not researchers. We are not getting money from this. We're not historians, and we don't claim to be, of course, any historians or anything in terms of having like a scientific authority. We're just collecting and curating material, and we're just curious, about why we have this amnesia. But
you're doing what most content creators do, only in regards to, say, the political realm, the pop culture realm. You're highlighting the problem. In which there's a question that needs to be answered, and the problem is the unanswered question. Now you need to find the question, then you find the answer. So you highlight the problem, which is the gaping hole in regards to the origins of humanity, and then finding the solution, which is what we've seen with many, many different topics, is trying to highlight the problem. More perspectives, the better. And from that, a solution can be manifested as we gather what details we can to try and find that solution. And then the third point is to be the change you want to see, and that becomes the history of humanity's creator origins, to use that term.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly what he said. It's just at the end of the day, we're not trying to, even then, I see what you're saying about pointing out a problem, but our initial inspiration wasn't to, say there's a problem. Yes, that eventually became a thing that we did take into consideration, after a while when you do research these kinds of things. But the initial interest of why we did it was simply because, hey, this wasn't in my history book. This should be considered. This should be looked at. Why is nobody looking at it? And then, of course, you go down into that definite rabbit hole of everything.
It's because we differentiate on the use of the term problem. To me, not knowing is a problem, and that means anything. I mean, it's very, very essential for me, because I live in a community where nothing gets solved. In all honesty, it's been decaying for 40 years, and I've essentially boiled down, the path to making it better, on a piece of paper. Highlight the problem, find the solution, be the change you want to see. And you know me, Dragon, I take a topic and then I just unleash it on everything and everywhere in regards to all things. So I think not knowing our origins is a problem, and finding them out needs to be a solution.
People might be afraid of it because the reason why is because some people may end up being afraid of it. I mean, for me, I'm more open to the concept of like, okay, fine, if it's the truth, or at least a fraction of the truth that I can then work on to find the remaining pieces, I'll take it. I just want to hear. I am of the mind that you should be open to hearing everything, but don't absorb everything. Actually think about it, and then come up with the best conclusion that you can. And unfortunately, that's become very impossible, as you've known, not only in like the pop culture space or other things. And no, we should not. No, Pat. Yeah, we should not ever stop asking questions. It's in our nature to never stop asking. It's like we were designed. It's like we were designed to be ever so curious, no matter what. It's like a part of our wiring that doesn't go away. You know.
Isaac Asimov said, you know, in the beginning, it was not chaos, it was not darkness, it was not Brahma, it was not light. In the beginning, the universe was just curious. That's why it opened up the gates to life.
Oh yes, the unity consciousness thing. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. That's a big rabbit hole. No, we're not gonna throw Ryan into that.
Not today.
Mess. Not today, Ryan. One day we'll get you there.
We have those thousands of tools, of course, from an era that shouldn't be there, that were found on the site of Helluwan, where Klaus Müller and other scientists assumed that the real Heliopolis, the first city of Heliopolis, actually existed, which was the perfect planning post, right? The perfect guideline site post to kind of, you know, construct the necropolis of Memphis. And exactly in that place, we find a lot of springs, a lot of different water canals and channels of different kinds, and thousands of tools. And Karl Lepsius, when he found those in the 19th century, of course, they said, oh no, this must be somehow medieval from the 15th century or something. This is not ancient. This can't be ancient. But truth of the matter is, they've been dated from the Natufian age to the pre-pottery Neolithic, which is, like, we're talking at least 9,000 BC, where those tools and those channels and those kind of, you know, man-made structures, those canals were
they
found.
Look like stones. I mean, the ability to sharpen a stone in that way, ladies and gentlemen, is quite impressive, because, you know, the classic European way is to find, you know, something that can take the hit and then sharpen it with the hit. But those intricate grooves, that indicates something far more advanced, which then begs the question: why would they need these advanced? Why would they need these more sophisticated, rather, stones, when the objects that made them that way could be more better, unless it was for a ceremonial purpose?
In Semitic language, we also have another very interesting kind of terminology that finds us on this path of exploration tonight, that spring in Semitic means also eye, right? So it's very interesting that Ainu, Ayan, Helluwan, like the place these tools were found on those old water springs, Arian, Arian, all these words in the Semitic languages of that time meant spring, of course, but also the eye. And of course, the eye is always connected to Horus. Let's not forget that the people before the pyramid builders that lived there, there were they had these ancient tribalistic types of outfits where they wore a bird on their head. So they imitated birds and flying around. They were literally the first birdmans, right? Believing that then somehow would help their transition from this lower vibrational realm into the higher vibrational realm, and coming back to the lower vibrational realm, and being always in this constant cycle. So even the people that before the builders of the pyramids believed that somehow the bird, right, was, and of course we find this in the analogy and the mythology of Horus, we find it in the Ben, in the Pyramidians, we find it with the Phoenicians, we find it here also in the pyramid text, where, you know, the pharaoh needs to travel like a bird through these different stages of the transformation of the underworld to finally travel with Cygnus to the North Pole. And mind you, guys, in the drier ages back then, the Polaris star was exactly this. It was Deneb, right? It was the star of Cygnus before it shifted, because we're living in the precession because of the wobbling effect of the Earth's rotation, right? We're wobbling back and forth, so we're kind of, you know, making this turn on this clockwork that takes 26,000 years. And so our polar star changes over time. And back in the days, all these ancient, societies and cultures believed that the Deneb star, that was also the Polaris, that the star that would be the imperishable star, like in the pyramid text, right? They talk about the indestructible star would be the center of the universe. This is where the soul would travel. And once we are there with the submitting, if you want to say something, please jump in.
No, I was sometimes I make noises when I'm intrigued.
So
yeah, I do want to mention one quick thing before
Sure.
you continue, because
Sure.
you mentioned something about the rituals that a lot of these I'll say bird crested people or priesthoods do, and it's not only a common practice in ancient Egyptian culture, it was quite widespread. It's just
Yes.
they each had their own slightly different methods depending on the region that and the type of knowledge that they had on hand. But overall, all these rituals were meant to for the people at the time. They weren't as knowledgeable as we are, but they were meant to highlight the journey of the literal soul, like the whole concept of in ancient Egypt, where after the pharaoh dies, his body is prepared. Supposedly he goes to this hall of waiting where Anubis greets him, and then walks him over, shows him what he's done with his life, and then afterwards weighs all the actions he did in his mortal life, or for each individual, just say, under the weight of a feather, and if it's light, then of course you can choose to either go to paradise or to the field of reeds, or you can choose to return, however you choose. But those that obviously fail the test would be forced to return. And this is basically talking about the cycles of death, rebirth, and just life. Okay, in general. So the three stages of a soul's journey, like to the ancient Egyptians and a lot of these very ancient cultures before they became too dogmatic. The idea, no, because that's what really happened. They became very dogmatic, and instead they focused way too much on the rituals and the steps and the processes rather than focusing on the deeper spiritual meanings.
Yes,
It's just something that happens.
Yeah.
They decide originally it was just an easy way to explain to their people, hey, this is fine, okay? If you die, don't worry. You'll just be your soul is eternal, okay? You're just gonna be sitting there waiting, and then afterwards you can choose to do whatever the fuck you want. You can even come back if you feel like it, because to them a body was just like how we see a pair of clothes.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a solution to the problem. You highlight the problem with the origins of humanity. The solution is to come up with an idea, or at its purest, an ideal of how things begin and how things end, in order for the people to be the change they want to see, to fulfill the ideal that they aspire to. And when there are conflicting views about that said ideal, of course there's conflict to see who's the strongest and who can move forward into a hopefully more peaceful and prosperous future. But I find it a testament to our modern world that we've managed to salvage that which remains of ancient history. And above even the Great Pyramids would have to be, and I can never pronounce this damn place's name because it's foreign, Göbekli Tepe, which was discovered near a wishing tree, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Yeah. You want to jump into this, Dragon? Because
yeah, sure. You want me to go into it? Okay. Which part are we talking about first? Like, what part are you looking at in the diagram?
You can give a little basis what Göbekli Tepe is and so on and so forth.
Sure.
What's important?
All right. So now, unfortunately, please tell me. I don't remember the name of like the official like archaeologist who eventually.
He died in 2014. Klaus Schmidt.
What was the name? Sorry, the audio cut out.
Schmidt from the LMU.
Klaus Schmidt, right?
In Munich.
Okay. So basically, I believe in the 90s, Klaus Schmidt, after being told that they found like evidence of very old ruins hidden underneath the sands in Turkey. They, near the wishing tree, as you mentioned, they started digging into this complex, and after a couple of years, they discovered that the way this temple was designed, and even the stones themselves through carbon dating, they turned out to be significantly older. And this was a very significant discovery at the time, because, I mean, to this day, it's still significant because they're still digging. But at the time, it was very profound. We're talking like as profound as when the discovery of the city of Troy was made, basically bringing to light the fact that, hey, maybe our collective human history is far older than we thought, because this temple, based off of the intricate carvings that we're seeing here, this thing, it could probably be at least 10,000 or more years old, or may have been made shortly after the Younger Dryas period ended. And most likely this was the area that they dug out, ironically, is a astrological observatory. However, that is just a fraction of the entire complex, because through some ground penetrating radar imagery, they were able to find out that this complex, there are way much older and deeper layers of city complexes. And unlike most of the really ancient structures, like, for example, Stonehenge, these were deliberately buried by someone. They don't know who. There's no historical records as to who buried it, but most likely it was buried a couple thousands of years ago. So during what we would call our currently known historical timeline, somebody went over there and deliberately buried this place in order to keep it safe from those who would basically destroy it. And they probably had the hopes that whoever discovered it would not destroy it, and would be smart enough to figure out that this is a pretty big deal, because there is one of the many symbols that we have here. There is one of them, I think it's the vulture, as you wrote in there on the top right. The vulture was designed and was designed during was designed and put in one of the stone blocks in a certain part of the complex, in order to explain to whoever found it. Again, this is a theory; it hasn't been 100% confirmed, but the idea, as the experts say, that they're theorized, is that when this vulture was designed, it was to let people know, along with other drawings above them, to signify that, hey, during this time period when the constellation of the vulture was present over this temple, when this constellation was present in the night sky, there was a literal cataclysm that occurred. And we want to let you know that these things are regular, but normally these cataclysms are not super catastrophic. The one that happened during the Younger Dryas, they wanted to make it very clear. And they're not the only ones that theorize this. There's a lot of alternative researchers and legit researchers that, they think that something odd happened during the Younger Dryas period. There's like no definitive.
Some wild theories from black magic to comets, invisible technology, rays, all that.
Well, I tend to, in my opinion, think about all of those. But to give you some framework, Ryan, I believe during the Younger Dryas period, before it occurred and all these disastrous changes occurred, the Earth's axis normally tilts a few degrees every couple thousands of years, but usually these tilts are so slowly induced that when the climate changes occur, they're not really catastrophic. They just adapt to it and move on.
Yes.
Well, I do know that every year there is a slight shift in the magnetic North Pole, and once there are enough shifts, all hell breaks loose, and the magnetic field fluctuates and causes chaos.
But what happened with the one during the Younger Dryas period is that for some reason the Earth's axis then tilted to, like, I believe it was 29 degrees north. Suddenly, it was like a very sudden cataclysmic shift.
Very abrupt move, right?
And that's why Yeah, and that's why supposedly this is when they say that the ancient civilization of Atlantis ended, because and where we lost most of our collective knowledge, and a lot of things were buried underneath either mud floods or just general flooding. It's because supposedly, again, there's a lot of theories as to how this occurred. One of them that I think is just my favorite theory of them all is, simply put, it's a mix of Plato and other things I've heard from alternative theories, which is that supposedly the advanced human civilization of Atlantis went to war against everyone at the time, and because of the royal family's unfathomable greed, they ended up getting into a civil war. And let's just say that as the bad guys were losing, one of them decided to basically summon, through their technology, they decided to bring down a nearby meteor, if I believe it was. And the
like
shit
meteor
fucked up
to
so
Earth.
bad it destroyed everything and it screwed everyone up. But again, that's a theory that I think is very fascinating.
We know by the modern era that seismic events can cause changes to the planet as a whole. I remember when the Japanese had a major earthquake, I think it was in the early 2010s, it moved Earth a few centimeters away from the sun. Enough seismic events in a part of the world could move the planet either towards or away from the solar object in the middle of our solar system. And if it moves too much either way, we're either burnt alive or we're frozen to death. Neither is very good. But with that kind of modern example that we know happened, a sizable event like a meteor strike or like a nuclear war or a series of natural disasters that move the planet either one way, the other, or its axis, could be an example of such a radical shift.
It could be. It definitely could be. It could be also just the indication that maybe the radical shift is also a cultural and a social one. And what we discovered also during one of our Greek mythology sessions is the very interesting fact that the constellations in the sky, or let's say the other way around, the kingdoms on planet Earth had always certain animals as symbols, like Egyptians had the ram, the Greeks had the bull, and so on and so forth. The Romans had the twins. Now, the crazy thing about this is that if you look at the precession of the equinoxes, that is a huge precession of stars that goes through the whole circle, 360 degrees, takes 26,000 years. And every zodiacal sign, every sign of the zodiac gets 30 degrees of 360 degrees in total. So every sign of the zodiac stands, 12 for 30 stands for the section of the clock it's going through. I made it too complicated. What I want to say is, when there was a certain sign in the sky reigning for over 2,000 years, the empire below was using that sign as its emblem, as its symbol, as its animal, as its totem, as its spiritual leader. So the Greeks were using the bull while we had the constellation of the bull reigning over them in the precession of the equinoxes exactly for 2,000 years. And then it switched into Gemini, Castor and Pollux, which was the Roman Empire. So after the bull, we had the twins, and after the twins, we saw the Virgo, which is the United States, which is Colombia, and before that, we had the ram. And so at that point, the empire of the Egyptians was flowering and flourishing. So that's very fascinating that there was some sort of mirror effect between the skies, between the heavens and earth, in terms of how they behaved and who had, the status quo, who kind of commanded the paradigm.
And it just goes to show that the history of humanity and the history of the stars has quite the link to it. Hopefully there's not a dragon on
No, unfortunately there is, but
no,
there is.
the dragon, we're screwed.
Oh, no.
Temple complex in Cambodia is aligned to the Draco star system. But the fascinating thing about Göbekli Tepe is that this very famous vulture stone, that of course this is just a very simplistic replica, but it has a very intriguing and very interesting type of function, because it is placed facing north, right, in this first circle that, you know, Dragon Slayer just described. And attached to it, we had this porthole stone. So there was this huge slab with this, you know, kind of, there was this hole in the middle where you could observe certain planets, and the vulture stone was next to it. And so in the midsummer solstice, you could see, if this was the North Pole, the celestial North Pole, exactly on the location where it's indicated on that stone slab on Göbekli Tepe, the position of Polaris, of the northern pole star, which at that time was again Cygnus. So people believe that the vulture stone in reality is the Cygnus stone. And to kind of fortify that belief a bit further, emphasize this, in the Armenian language, which is part of the territory, the Armenoid, you know, population that was in that area where Göbekli Tepe is today, they had this word that was angelic, which then later became the angel in our language. And it literally means vulture, angel, or Cygnus, right? So the Cygnus is again connected to the northern pole, to its celestial pole of, you know, back in the days when the polar star was not in today's constellation. And this slab, even though it's roughly built in Göbekli Tepe, it perfectly represents that Cygnus constellation on the northern celestial pole, and it's aligned perfectly to the horizon when the winter solstice, when the, you know, sun is going up. So again, we're not talking about a coincidence. It seems like this whole structure that is incredibly old, and the surrounding structure was designed according to kind of, you know, immortalize, to kind of picture those unique events in time. And Klaus Schmidt also discovered something very interesting. The sarcophagus chamber in Egypt and these, you know, kind of elliptical, you know, structures in Göbekli Tepe, they resonate. They are built in 4/3 or 3/2 harmonies. So like Dragon Slayer said before, there is this concept that the stars were also radiating some sort of a melody, some sort of a hymn, that they were also trying to capture a resonance, a frequency, music. And the churches that we have today that are perfectly built sonar chambers, back in the days, this is how they looked. This was their, you know, very rough way of building that resonance body, of capturing that wavelength.
There's certainly a value there that's trying to be harnessed in such a way. And to use a Mass Effect example, I'm sure Dragon Slayer will understand this one. The main bad guys, they're called the Reapers, would use a harmony signal or a sound. It could also be portrayed as an electromagnetic field, and that's the basis for their indoctrination, to enslave people, especially the weak-minded. So it's very rare that these things, fantasy and reality, do blend together when the harmonic signal is trying to be discovered. In the days of the ancients, it would go from the earth to the heavens to the earth. And you see in fantasy the literal representation of all of galactic history, which the Reapers were. They would come in, they would harvest, they would then fuse themselves with what they harvest, and then they go back into dark space, wait, and the cycle repeats to try and keep everything alive. And it seems to be doing that, what the ancients were trying to do before their great demise.
I truly believe, like 100%, that the reason they kind of put up this nonsensical woke culture in order to destroy our canons and our original stories is also to erase the breadcrumbs that these incredible authors Lovecraft, Roddenberry, Tolkien, all these incredible authors have left us because I believe they were aware of the workings of the universe. They were aware that we are a civilization that is suffering from amnesia because somehow there is a wedge in between us and our ancient history. And they tried, H.G. Wells, Orson Welles, all these authors, they have tried to kind of convey a message in their books and their tales, and their science fiction books, right? Jules Verne, all these people, and they are changing the stories, they're changing folklore, they're changing fairy tales, they're erasing the original lore from all these movies and TV series and these books as much as they can, is because people will wake up if they read this stuff. If they read the original material and kind of start thinking like you're doing right now, connecting the dots and kind of, hey, wait a second, is this an analogy? Is this repo thing like a metaphor for something that maybe occurred on this planet? Or what's up with the Lovecraft tale of Antarctica and all these strange beings living there, the horrors and all that stuff? That somehow kind of clings into the Zack Shaver stories from the Impossible stories. And there's a lot of stuff that came out of that. So I feel like the woke agenda is called in the way it is called just to deflect from its original purpose, to destroy even more our connection with the past.
Oh yeah, you're right about that. An interesting fact about Tolkien is that the literal origin of his universe literally was made through sound frequency harmonics. Like literally, the way he explains the creation is that the one being the source, unity, whatever you want to call it, God, said, "Okay, I want to create something. I'll make basically spirit copies of myself," and then they create a literal music, or where they just sing the universe into existence by combining their sound frequencies with the one creator. And of course, you always have like the the concept of like, oh well, but there was one opposing force, Melkor, or some people call it, Lucifer, others say Araman, whatever you want. Either way, there's always like this opposing force that it's like a byproduct that was created out of this harmonic convergence. Because sometimes, and, we all when we do our when we do our voiceovers, when we hear music, sometimes we can tell even in some of the best pieces, there's always like some dissonance or distortion in certain things that we hear. And so
look at that structure.
This is Mozambique, by the way. This is Mozambique, by the way. There are thousands like this in Mozambique, in South Africa, and Botswana. They're hiding them, or not really hiding them, but they're not really promoting them.
Or not they don't see a value to them. That's what leads more credence to the idea that there was something there. Before.
And I think it was a Welsh researcher of Welsh origin who went there for the first time and started making measurements, and they are wild. The stuff that you can measure inside of those harmonics. Again, this also ties to what Dragon Slayer said before. You're a real genius, man. Because there is something about the number 6, right? And this is, again, it's the hexagon, right? It's planet Saturn, it's the eye, it's Sauron, it's Saturn. So there's this weird kind of parallel that we see in the number 6 in the construction, because these are always the shortest vector to connect one point, right? So it's very interesting that the number 6 has this prevalence, right?
There we go.
In the human mind, because it's also two triangles in a way. So so here we have these Mozambique circles that are super fascinating as well. I'm not kind of going too deep into those, but somehow they remind me of Göbekli Tepe. I mean, look at these structures.
They do, because
and just goes to show, though, I was trying to make reference to before, the reason the authorities in those territories don't give a damn about the structures is because they know their people did not make them. And as far as we're aware, in sub-Saharan Africa, no civilization of substance has risen within known history, which begs even more questions as to the authenticity of our original history. I always like to criticize sub-Saharan Africa just to tease Atreus, but in all seriousness, if those structures have lasted the test of time. Something must have been there before the incarnation of the sub-Saharan African, which is
I have a theory.
allegedly the origin of humanity, which is the biggest
Ooh,
joke
yes.
of it all.
I'll tell you
Oh,
what's
wow.
interesting about that. So when you say origin of humanity, sometimes people
Yeah,
always mistake it for the Lucy fossil. But in my
Right.
opinion, people are maybe misinterpreting it a little bit. I believe that when they mean the origin of humanity in Africa, they mean maybe if they're referencing the story that is told in a bunch of other ancient cultures, but more famously known in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, right?
Sure.
So the idea is that when that Thoth originally was a human Atlantean priest that eventually became an ascended master of his own right, but after the fall of Atlantis, when his own group left, because according to him, he was just one of many fringe groups that escaped and hid and hid with their like chosen humans, if you will, that would listen to them. By
Right.
chosen humans, I mean like there's this prevalent theory that just like how we now have an advanced worldwide human society, but there are like always these pockets of primitive human tribes that don't interact with our side, with our technologically advanced side at all. The same was true way back then. We're talking like 10,000 plus years ago before the cataclysms happened. And
And
so,
I have
according to the story, was
yeah.
that?
No, we have to kind of
Mm.
again, the theory of the unified, African descendant is similar to the, unified God particle that set off the
Mm.
universe. Again, it's a Jesuit theory that was
It
brought.
sounds crazy, Coach, that we all come from sub-Saharan Africans.
It's absolutely nonsense. Also,
Yeah.
there is plenty of evidence in the northern hemisphere of this planet that
Mhm.
the oldest findings that we have in terms of the oldest depiction of the Venus, the oldest weapons, the oldest art objects, the oldest the oldest depiction of a graphic thought. So the first translation of a thought into an image, it's all Northern Europe. It's not Africa. So the oldest Venus is 50,000 years old. It's actually from the south of Germany. The oldest hunting spears are from northern Germany. And we can go on and on and on. So the theory that the thing is coming out of Africa, again, was brought forth 19th century. We know exactly who the groups were. It's to undermine that victimhood type of superiority mentality, to kind of tell them, yeah, you came here and then you were exploited by us and now you belong to us, and kind of to install that belief into these people, to have that endless, like Germany, right? This endless loop that you have to go through, that you have to suffer through without redemption. Yeah, but you will always be the small population that kind of left the field and now where you got conquered by the angry white mean man, which is absolutely nonsensical. It's absolutely not true. So here we have something else that indicates there are many other connections to Cygnus and Göbekli Tepe. It's absolutely crazy. Also, if you look at the Altai people, one of the oldest populations, right, coming out of Siberia, we have the Denisovans in Siberia as well. Denisovans, the giant, mole teeth and everything that we found there. And these people claiming 40,000 BCE, that their ancestors were brought there by a giant bird, that the soul traveled there. The Altai people believed that there was some sort of a giant bird bringing the soul to man, and the giants back then constructed these megalithic sites. That is, wherever you go, there is the tale of the giant building these incredible, whether it's Mastodontica, Malta, if you go to Germany, where we'll go in a second, pretty much all over the globe, also in Northern America. And then, the Indian tribes believed, the northern native Indian tribes believed that there was some sort of an ancient giant culture that roamed through these mountains.
That sounds like a smoke alarm, Coach.
It is.
Have you allowed your wife to cook? Usually I'd support it, but I know what Southern European women are like when it comes to cooking.
So if we go to no, actually, when we go to the cavern of Lascaux in southern France, yeah, it's our
There it
fire
goes
line.
again.
Oh
The building,
boy.
or is my wife cooking? I don't know. I'm gonna stay here until the whole. It's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah,
Everything's
it's fine,
fine.
everyone.
At
Welcome
least
to
your
the stream.
fire alarm is working.
My
Unlike
fire alarm, I'm not sure the
Oh my god. Oh Lord. No, I do want to mention that the with all of these cultures, you know, they always seem to have connections to to a lot of different kinds of constellations.
Mhm.
And they always mention that, you know, their origins, like the true origins of their people at least, are not based on this planet, as if like their origins, the thing that made them who they are today now on planet Earth, came from somewhere, for example, near the Sirius constellation or Orion constellation, to give the common examples. And
Right.
yes, no, we're not going to go into
Well,
ancient aliens too much, but one thing
the idea of the
what?
giants, though, Dragon, is something that
Yes.
really intrigued me personally, because
Ooh.
there are certain structures in Latin America that look like they've been laser cut
absolutely.
by modern standards, such
Yep.
big structures. I mean, the ideas of Stonehenge's construction, moving these massive building blocks and putting them on one by one, considering the abilities of the people according
Here.
to mainstream history, just sounds like an impossible achievement for them to create.
Yeah.
But if human beings are 10 times the size, it's far easier to make that
Yeah.
so the connection with the legend of the giants and the mythos that they create, especially with the Titans, because the Titans are a great example of manifesting beings. And of course, within the Christian context, you know, humans mating with fallen angels to create these
Nephilim,
monsters of men. Usually, I think that is
monsters and heroes. Don't forget, it's kind of crazy. It's actually dualistic. It's very dualistic interpretation, which I find it very fascinating, because you always have those stories of good and heroic giants fighting against the evil ones, and that there was always this war that, unfortunately, the way the mythologies or the histories portray humanity at this time with these giants or with these gods, if you will, or both, is we're like those kids that are stuck in an abusive household, where like your dad beats you up with the belt and your mother like berates you and makes you feel low on your self-esteem. That's basically how humanity sounded to me. Like both sides, most of them viewed humanity as just like annoying little servant pests. But then there was this kind brother or uncle that like just stole a few people away from the abusive household and helped them realize they were more.
Or maybe the children killed the parents.
That's true as well. But also, it's mostly linked to like this abuse of a very ignorant humanity that was exposed to a lot of crap that they were not given any context for, at the whims of very powerful people. And yes, Brett, you are correct about that. The human beings are very capable of building these structures themselves. It's just that people don't. If people try to entertain the idea, they would then have to ask themselves, okay, did these giants exist? If they did, were they human? And then if the answer is yes, some of them were, or all of them were, then at that point is, how did they cut these perfect stones? Like, for example, as I mentioned in the chat right now, Machu Picchu, that's a great example of what you're talking about, Ryan, where the megalithic stones, they're cut with such precision that when the stone blocks are placed, it's perfect placement, to the point where you cannot even fit a feather or tiny or a piece of paper, a thin piece of paper through the
by
hole.
modern standards.
By
That's
modern
the key,
standards,
which means there's a piece of the puzzle that we're not seeing,
Yeah.
So
and
even
that our
if it's
history
polymer,
is incomplete.
right. Even if it was liquid before and then it got hardened over time, it's still an incredible feature, right? Because of the knobs that are on the backdrop, on the lower point of the slabs. it's, some have came to the conclusion that it could be some sort of liquid that hardens over time. We have this theory as well, but if you go to Egypt, we have, again, stone blocks that are so perfectly cut from a quarry that is allegedly 500 miles south, right? And that there is literally no sheet of paper that gets in between. And it's not only about cutting those stones. If we look at the stones under a microscope, we discover that there are no tracks of any instruments working those stones. And so the theory was brought forth, I think it started in the 70s, where people started kind of speculating if it wasn't by sound that these blocks were cut, manufactured, and transported and placed in, kind of in the position that they are today. That sound somehow kind of was part of that. And yes, maybe these people found a way of kind of letting, objects levitate through sounds, through speakers, through whatever it was. We haven't found that tech so far, or it has been kept under seal by the Vatican, British Museum, Smithsonian, and the other institutes, or just simply been destroyed by the Jesuits, or just kind of buried again. That could be, but it's very hard to speculate into the direction. It seems almost impossible. And mind you, there were 2 universities in the 90s that tried to build a 5-meter pyramid with their new tech, just in the way it is built today. And they haven't, they couldn't finish it. I think it was the University of Tokyo that couldn't finish a 5-meter tall pyramid because they simply said, no, it's impossible. That type of accuracy and that type of speed where we're theorizing it was built, it's impossible to today's standards. I once worked with an architect also, and we talked about lifting heavy stones, just lifting them. And he said, Lorenzo, the problem about a stone is not just getting it out of the quarry, but lifting is an incredible, like a very, very dangerous endeavor. It's not as easy as this crane thing kind of let it look like. You need a lot of, engineers on site. You need a lot of, weather calculations, wind, everything. Because if you lift a stone slab that, weighs in excess of 30 tons, every meter that you lift it in vertically, and then you have to maneuver it, that's such a force that you have to kind of deal with. It's impossible today to lift something in excess of 30 tons. Mind you, 30 tons. And we see stones being worked in Machu Picchu in excess of 50, 60 tons. Pyramids of Giza, we have stones in excess of 70, 80 tons. And the quarries of Baalbek in Lebanon, there is the trilithon stone, the pregnant stone that still lies there because it couldn't be lifted because they had a major crack in the middle. And it weighs in excess of 1,500 tons. We need 320 cranes, heavy lifting cranes of our size, of today's size, to just lift that stone. So there is a huge problem when you try to kind of think of like how, and now we have thousands of those constructions, thousands of pyramids.
I mean, Stonehenge is a great example because there are these massive stones that have been put there. And the origin of that stone material, I think, is somewhere in South Wales. And this was before the Severn Bridge, folks. They'd have to go around, and these are colossal stones. Unless they chop them all up and then cemented them back together, and we don't see the damn difference.
I got a good example.
To transport that, highlighting what Coach said earlier, because these are very, very heavy stones, and you can't just get thousands of people dragging it across the land because we would have noticed the drag, and they can't exactly pick them up because they're so heavy and it would take so many people.
Also, to lift them it's not just lifting, it's placing them. As soon as you move 1 meter out of your vertical lifting axis, you need, I think, 3 times the force for every meter. So you have a crane that is placed vertically, and so every meter that goes out of its axis where you transport a stone, I think it is 3 times the weight that you have to need to, first the strength to lift, and then as a counterweight. It's really like, even thinking of placing one of those stones in 70-meter height like they did back then, or Machu Picchu. I mean, they raised the top of a mountain. We don't know where the top of the mountain is, and then they placed the village on top, and it's absolutely inaccessible. And there's some stones that have been kind of worked into that fabric of that construction that are in excess of tons. So, you know, there are some serious eyebrows, right?
There's a legit thing that's being studied scientifically to this day. And yes, thank goodness you mentioned the Easter Island statues, because the Easter Island statues, just like the stone blocks, a lot of megalithic blocks or statues, they are excessively heavy. Yet with the Easter Island statues, it's obvious enough that what they see here is just the tip of what probably used to be a very massive statue that may have been hanging over either a palace, a temple, or just a notable home of someone noteworthy that we have no idea about. And a lot of people ask themselves this question, like, okay, fine, let's entertain this whole thing about giants or that they, you know, supposedly they lifted these huge blocks. How did they do it? Because, you know, I don't care if you're 16 feet tall and, you know, have like 95% muscle mass. Like, it's not going to change the fact that you're lifting like a 50-ton block, and that even if you had 40 of you, it would be hard for you to carry it over a tiny, like, ledge crossing like Machu Picchu. So how do you do it? Well, there is actually a legit answer to that, and that is the concept of using sound manipulation technology, or I should say sound frequency manipulation technology, where with that technology you find the exact frequency that, say, the megalithic slab would respond to after it's been properly cut and designed. And like, say you're trying to build a temple and you have all the pieces you need already nice and cut. It's like a Lego set, if you will. You know what you want to build. You're just going to follow the instructions and assemble it. Well, now you got the issue of how you're going to get it up the mountain, or, you know, 2,000 miles north. Well, simply put, you use an advanced technology like sound frequency manipulation. You find the right frequency that will harmonize with the stone slabs. You use technology to calculate that, and all of a sudden, these 50-ton blocks are lifted up in the air like as if they're light as a feather, and they are carefully placed into whatever container is that they're going to transport it to. Or simply put, the transport units that move these blocks had this kind of technology where they were able to amplify the signal and carry these stone blocks this way through those thousands of miles or up a cliff. Now, at that point, you'd be asking the question of, okay, fine, let's say your giants had access to this technology. Why haven't we found any such things? Well, the reason for that is, simply put, it has been mentioned everywhere. It's in every single occult religion and school that you can think of. It's just worded differently. Each one has their own style of using it. Some say it can be
went terribly wrong.
Yes, but also technology has been known to have been taken and stolen and kept hidden from the rest of society by a lot of world governments and private individuals. Yes, so not going to go into that hole, but that's also another reason.
It's another episode. It's another can of worm. So I showed you some pictures that were taken by this beautiful human being called Rodney Hale, who kind of calculated everything, also the alignments here. And he clearly showed that all these, you know, what seems to be like rough and, you know, kind of primitive type of drawings are actually perfectly accurately positioned, you know, constellations in the sky, and it represents perfectly the North Pole of the celestial northern hemisphere, the horizon, the alignment. So in Göbekli Tepe, not only we have these heavy blocks, we have also the famous handbags that we see with the Sumerian and Assyrian culture that we can't really explain and we don't really know. Some say that these are the seed of lives, but this is worth another episode. But we see all these incredibly accurate position constellations in their crossing over the North Celestial Pole, indicating these cataclysms with an incredible accuracy. So we're talking about observers, star observers, and astrology, observing the stars, calculating mathematically what time, where, which period, all this stuff. This is not some tribe of shepherds, and not some rudimentary primitives that are just hunters and collectors and simple gatherers. Granted, observing the stars when you have no light pollution somewhere on the countryside isn't a difficult thing to do, but still you need to make some calculations, you need to pass the information on, you need to educate some other generations, because you in your lifetime don't even have the chance to track all these celestial events. So definitely you need some sort of a library, an archive, an oral tradition where you can tell about those things. And if they are so powerful that they align whole cities to it, you can say that this had a lot of influence, a lot of importance, and a lot of authority in their society. So therefore, if you have that, a society that believes in those events and looks into these spiritual meanings, and so therefore you can say it's a very elaborate, very sophisticated society. It's definitely not a primitive type of conglomerate of kind of random shepherds. Oh, look, there is a star. Oh, it could be Cygnus, right? No, it's somehow definitely like some part of a deep-seated culture.
I mean, it looks like a warning. Warning of, yes. I mean, that drawing, it's rather crude, but it's better than nothing. But that crude drawing looks like it looks like a
the original picture you criticizing.
Oh man,
you cannot. I mean, have you seen the drawing of Brian Roger Athey during Saturday Night Hypnosis? Have you seen his drawings?
My drawings
to my channel. I invite him. I give him this forum, this incredible opportunity, and what does he do? It's incredible.
But the art, the tablet, the artwork looks like a warning of what was and what could well be.
Yeah,
the example of this surviving piece before the cataclysm, and of course, every major belief system has that destruction and rebirth story within it, and it is that kind of connection that really lends credence to my thought that something went terribly wrong, and the world that we are not aware of came to an end, and we are in that new world, and it could come to an end for us as well.
The thing is, with our world, it seems like all of these like groups are saying like, unfortunately, what happened at that time was a necessary thing that was needed in order for human beings to grow and understand through intense struggle, if you will, that there's more to life than an obsession over materialism. So there's a reason why Plato mentions constantly, and a lot of other philosophers, and the stories of and the story of and many other stories of pre-Diluvian civilizations. There's always this idea that whoever the masters of technology of humanity at the time were, it originally was a society that had its roots, if you will, in the spiritualism of a mother civilization that was not destroyed in a cataclysm, more like that primitive spiritual society. That continent simply sank due to a normal natural disaster, but the teachings and the civilization structure and everything survived, and there wasn't a lot of loss of human life, if you will. Supposedly that was about, again, alternative theories say it was about 50,000 years ago, and this is when Atlantis, if you will, or the kingdom of it, we call it Atlantis because we have no idea of its real name, but it was called that because at the time Atlantis used to be part in where the mid-Atlantic ridge is at, and supposedly it was either a massive island continent or it was more like 3 island continents where you had 2 small ones, one where the Azores is at, and one where the Azores is at.
Structure in the Sahara. What do you think about that? Have you looked into that?
Oh, you mean the eye of the Sahara, like how it has a spiral?
The Ricard or Ricard structure?
Yeah. My theory with that one is I don't think that's where I don't believe the theories that say that's where Atlantis was. I simply
Yeah.
believe that just like today, when you have an advanced society, you have, of course, you have a madre terra. You have motherland location where the origin of it all is there. But in order to honor your motherland, you go out, conquer or discover slash settle in a colony. And what's the first thing you do? You honor your motherland by mimicking its
Mm,
architectural style. And
mm,
I believe that's why a lot of people believe that um, the theory that that's Eye of the Sahara ring was where Atlantis originally used to be. I don't believe that. I simply believe that if it was part of Atlantean society, it most likely was a colony that maybe was established at the time, but unfortunately, due to whatever natural disasters occurred, it was completely obliterated or it simply deteriorated over time due to neglect and maybe other factors. I honestly believe that the way that the geographical data is telling us, it seems that this empire of Atlantis originally started in that one massive continent where the mid-Atlantic ridge is at. It
mhm.
was, and all the information points to the fact that there were 7 royal progenitor families that were established, and they were all under the command of a single, 7 noble families, but under the command of a single royal superior
Like
bloodline.
a superior commander,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. It's basically, if you will, like, uh,
I mean,
imagine the British monarchy, but imagine, how
no, I
each
get
one
it. I
had,
get it.
it's
I
sort of
mean,
like our common monarchies, and the idea was is that
years
you had
I
them.
I
Yeah,
totally believed Atlantis. I totally believe
yeah.
because it makes so much sense in Herodotus and what we find also in Morocco and Mauritania. There is some compelling
Yes.
folklore that matches words, names, locations. But over time, I got a bit dubious over this because where is the tech? When do we start finding some stuff except some metal
Yeah.
ball? I mean, some of the stuff that we found close to the record structure, for example, it is truly fascinating. The metal balls, you can't just throw this away. There is something about these
Yeah.
balls that they're radiating. Some of them are still kind of, they have some radioactive something
Mhm.
radioactive about them as well. So there is definitely something
Element.
going on there.
Yeah.
But I personally find as we continue to advance, especially in regards to technology, I mean the one great thing about artificial intelligence, and I don't usually praise it, is that when it reaches its um what's it called? Not synergy. There's like a point where it becomes very advanced, but at that point,
Singularity.
yes, at the point of
Mm.
the singularity, ladies and gentlemen, things that cannot be answered, hopefully, fingers crossed, will be answered. Hello, everyone. It just goes to show under that format, I'm actually perfectly layered out. But at that point,
Oh,
see that?
okay. Interesting.
But from that singularity, ladies and gentlemen, our understanding of space travel will be incredible, fingers crossed, and we will be able to travel faster than light. And that's the key, because time
Mhm.
has a limit in regards to space. So if you can break the light barrier, it is theoretically possible to go to the nearest star system, which is 4.5 years away, quicker than light can, and then come back, and you end up in the past.
It's Alpha Centauri, right? It's the
Yeah.
closest to Alpha
Yes,
Centauri.
Yeah.
Proxima Centauri,
But
which is
what
the
about
Synthetic Greater System.
Mhm.
if we're looking at these ancient peoples again, and we're kind of derailing a little bit, but we're not really derailing. So first of all, we're
Yeah.
the tangent kings. So it's our
Mhm.
duty and our privilege to derail
Yes.
streams, right?
Yeah,
And first,
the
and
reason
second of all,
the reason I brought that up though is
no,
that
no, no, it's
the
absolutely right.
greatest the greatest way to answer the question is to actually get there. Now,
Mhm.
in passing the light barrier, it hopefully you can go many times faster than light.
I,
It
I
is
think
it is
so.
theoretically possible to go back and forth enough times to go back to that period. Of course, you wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
come back, so get cryo freezing ready.
Mhm.
But it is in theory, possible if that milestone is reached. And that's why I think the AI singularity is necessary.
Think about
Yeah.
Back to the Future. It's a transistor, right? Think about these ancient tribes. They are all telling us it's sound. Think about, Tesla, who's, 369, right? What about this concept? Again, coming from the standpoint that we shouldn't trust. I mean, to me, I'm not saying this is like should be, but if I look at the conception of what we call modern science, modern academia, where it's coming from, and what is the narrative that occupies major universities, the Ivy League colleges, and the institutions of the illuminated, of the 1% that then dictate, the laws of this planet. So they're all coming back to just a couple of institutions that are running this narrative from the 19th century that is telling us it's light. Light is the fastest, light can be broken. So I don't trust necessarily these people, because they have showed many, many times through history that they were first wrong, and then also motivated by a sinister agenda, and sometimes just spreading outward lies. So let's set this up. Maybe light is not the fastest. Maybe it's sound. Maybe sound is the wave that kind of encompasses all the other waves. Maybe it's sound that was there.
It's sound frequency. It's light frequency technically, or if I will, well, we say sound frequency, but in reality, it's mostly vibration, if you will, just in general. There are obviously different frequencies of vibration, but there was this theory that, for example,
it's an interesting thought, by the way, Pat.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you guys are amazing in the chat, by the way. Thank you so much, Pat. Really good.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree with what he's saying. Sometimes it might take AI for people to finally just stop being stupid with that stuff. But in my opinion, a lot of people ask themselves this question, like, okay, fine, you say that Atlantis was super advanced, like way more advanced in accordance to people say than our current society. And you say that these people learn how to discover the spiritual and physical components and how to properly use the concept of vibrational frequency and go through all these levels to make amazing technology to be able to not only create amazing structures, but at the same time extend their lifespans to say from our average 80 years to like 10, 20, 50,000 years in a single body, because they can use a technology that can heal any ailment in their body instantaneously.
Yes.
A lot of people ask themselves the question, well, where's this technology? My answer to that is we need to stop looking up, or I would say more in our current field of view. Most of what you are going to be asking for is going to be underground, either buried under a lot of, what used to be mud covered with water, that now is sand or just plain solid earth. That will need to be dug up. And also some of these technologies were locked up in very ancient vaults that can only be opened with a certain either a code, or only will open at certain times for certain individuals that don't have ill will or intentions. And no, this isn't me just saying it because I'm coming up with a movie or something. This is this is something that's even been said by just normal people that have been researching this. Like Giza, for example, like the fucking Egyptian government is not going to let anybody dig underneath the Great Sphinx, even though the literal emerald tablets and every single ancient manuscript of ancient Egypt says, hey, if you want to find out about your past, there's a literal records hall underneath, I believe it was the right or left paw of the Sphinx. Just dig under it and you'll find a hidden chamber that'll take you to these tunnel passages where you will find what you're seeking. But this knowledge will only be understood and will only be discovered by those who truly seek it and want to improve humanity at a time of great change, which is supposedly our current time.
Well, you have to understand, Dragon, that the current occupiers of modern day Egypt are Arabs.
Yeah, but also it's not only
I'm
that,
amazed
but
they haven't blown up the pyramids,
no.
considering
Yeah, they
they're
they're
real.
they are thinking
they're
about it.
heavily
Believe me.
protected.
I mean,
They're heavily protected by other people that are not them, but also
sure.
Egyptology in general is very
Yeah, we talked
flawed.
about
I'm gonna
it's
say,
very
like
flawed. Yeah,
they're
we
very
talked about
flawed.
our beautiful sir the last time. Yes, definitely we're gonna we definitely gonna have an episode about the underworld and what's beneath. There is Heinrich Kusch, Austrian researcher, for 40 years now. Has been like extensively kind of going through the underground systems in northern Bavaria and eastern Austria, and he has found incredible stuff. It's absolutely
Yeah.
mind blowing. And again, history needs to be rewritten just to kind of continue our Cygnus path along
Well,
these historical sites.
unfortunately, Coach, I probably should have told you this earlier, but unfortunately, it is getting rather late in
Late for
my
you, man. Of course, man.
Oh, that's
Please.
right.
a
No,
solid
no, no.
2 hours would be fine. But thank
Absolutely.
you.
Make
Thank
sure
you.
to tell these good people where to find you. And thank you so much for lending us your time.
It's been great to be on, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for having me on. Of course, always welcome to be back, especially because I seem to be the only creator with a solid set, despite being the least attractive looking. But Dragon doesn't show himself, so he's the least.
Don't say that.
Well, the truth is reality based, Coach. I should know. It's literally my creator name. But you can check me out at Ryan Roger Athe, whether it's on YouTube, Twitter. I'm sure you'll find me in other places as well. We've got plenty of topics written down here that we could chop up into videos. Some long, some short. But I'd be sure to link this show because it needs all the advertisement it can get. Two criminally underrated creators right beside me, and the least I can do is provide their show a platform in the best way possible, which is through clear and concise videos. Damn hair, it's always annoying. But yeah, it's a pleasure, and I'll be sure to link this stream to those respective videos, which will be released either in the next few days or maybe the next few weeks, because I've got 11 written down. So that's great. That's quite a lot. But you two have a good talk, and hopefully you can, have a great talk.
Thank you so much. It was absolutely fantastic, and definitely check out Ryan's legendary channel. He's also an integral and pivotal part of the Saturday Night Hypnosis, and he's a different type of content creator. Not only because he looks, smells, eats, talks differently than all the other human beings on this planet, but because he is an integral part to what he believes. He has certain values he's invested in. He has a spinal cord that is based on, principles that he follows.
My back is killing me, Coach. Maybe I should take off my skin suit.
No. And this is something that I really admire about yourself. You're not some flag in the wind. You have your standing, and you will continue to do so. And I wish you all the best of and greatest of success in 2024.
Likewise, because you're criminally underrated on YouTube. You've got a presence on Facebook, got a presence on Instagram, and hopefully you can be that bridge that can make entertainment great again.
And like Pat said, racism has never sounded so elegant.
Well, to conclude, I will respond to Pat by saying, or Pet, one of those, it's not racist if it's true, and the truth is reality-based. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, and no one else, bye for now. Have a great stream, guys.
Thank you, well, man. You have a nice day.
You have a nice day. We're still hanging out a bit. What do you think about that? We continue our travels.
I mean,
or you need to go.
We can do maybe
like in a half hour.
Probably another half hour. Yeah, we can do it for next 27 minutes. I was gonna ask you, just because.
We already. We can finish this up even quicker. We're almost done. I think we've kind of exemplified pretty well.
Well, quick before you continue. Sorry, I just want to. I'm way too curious. But on the left hand side, what's that? What's the man with the shield? Is that supposed to be like a representation of some like ancient king or something with a trident,
Oh,
like Atlantean
yeah,
royalty or something?
no, this
Yeah,
thing
like
here,
the man with a
this
trident. Yeah.
Hyperborean looking man, right? So the interesting thing is, not only do we find a perfect star map in the cavern of Lascaux, which is allegedly was painted 17,000 BC, according to German researcher Michael Rapagneck, who is an incredible researcher and has proven beyond any shadow of doubt, like it is accepted by even mainstream academia, that the so-called birdman that we find in this cavern of Lascaux is a perfect representation of Cygnus again. We have the bird on the pole, which is again also the prolongation of its tail. We have the star Vega, and the eye of the bison, the Danube, the brightest star, which was the polar star back then, and Altair, the other star in the nearby system, also in the northern hemisphere, perfectly well to see, was also kind of depicted here in this cavern of Lascaux. So, and the cavern of Lascaux is heavily associated with shamanistic rituals. They found a lot of evidence there that there's been always a place of gathering, of ritual gatherings in the underground, as well as in Germany. This is what this guy actually stands for, because we have Cygnus appearing in Wildeshausen, which is a town in northern Germany. And here the story gets really, really crazy. So we have one of the oldest stone megalithic parks on planet Earth, perfectly aligned. Not all of them. Some of them are aligned also to other systems, but one of the most important ones are also perfectly aligned to this constellation of Cygnus. And there were a lot of shamanistic rituals that were performed there in Germany as well. And they again, like the Egyptians, like the Armenoids in the tribes here in Göbekli Tepe, like the southern parts of France, like in Northern America, also the tribes of Wildeshausen in Germany believed that Cygnus was somehow the bird that could, kind of bring the soul to paradise and bring life back to the mortal ground. So it's a very interesting type of narration that we find also here. And very much vivid and alive throughout, these ancient ruins and these ancient sites. And I just wanted to kind of show you a couple of those stone formations in Germany because they are incredible.
Yeah, no, show me. And I was going to mention this, but to Ryan, but I guess he'll see it, he'll hear it in the replay. But one thing I was going to mention is that underneath my own homeland, so if you guys didn't know, I am originally from Cuba. Underneath my own homeland, 2,000 miles underneath the sea near the coast of I believe is not Pinar del Rio, but like in the far western tip of Cuba, there is in like an ocean shelf, if you will, 2,000 miles underneath in the sea level. They discovered in the early 2000s through sonar mapping, specifically sonar imaging, that there were structures that were solid structures that were bouncing off of these signals. And after an artist did a rendition of them, he discovered that these structures, they are, how do I say it? They look very artificial or man-made, where
like pyramids, man.
It literally looks like a city that was buried
underwater. Yes, it looks a bit like Palenque in Guatemala. It's an incredible structure with canals and everything.
Yeah, and one thing is like, oh my god, I gotta find this because, like, man, I don't know how I'll be able to do this, but like, I was watching this show where it's called Ancient Civilizations. It's very good. It's on Gaia TV if you have it. But one of them that was doing it, one of the first episode they did was talking about like the whole idea of like, okay, where did the Olmecs or the Mayans acquire like their knowledge of astronomy and the pyramid structure design, right? And one of the things that was discovered is that several thousands of years ago, when the sea levels were way much lower, turns out that Cuba was one. Where Cuba's at now currently, it actually used to be just a very tall mountain range, if you will. So originally there was way more landmass that's now
Yes.
submerged under, that it would be what you would consider like mountainous lowland regions that would have benefited a lot from the mountainous terrain, because they would have created perfect area for soil to be built in. And even so, the Olmecs in their legends mention that their ancestors came as refugees from the land of the red soil. And in Cuba, especially in the far eastern parts of it, the dirt in these farmlands looks very reddish,
Yes.
paprika reddish colored, because of the high iron content that they have in the
Right.
soil, and it creates very fruitful crops. And so I just thought it was very fascinating, because if we go off of that theory, it seems that these the like maybe where my homeland is at, supposedly according to Edgar Casey, where my homeland was at, it used to
Yeah.
be part of a much larger empire. But anyway, tell me about these stone cairns, because they look fascinating.
Definitely. I just to close this off, the year is long. We can talk about Cuba and the connection to Atlantis. I've heard from many sources that the only reason that there is something like Guantanamo Bay, it's just a scapegoat excuse to kind of bring these artifacts to kind of have a reason to be in Cuba, to have a little
Ooh.
station there so they can dive for those artifacts. That's the only interest. It's not to have some sort of an outpost. It's because they know exactly that these temples are filled, these buildings are filled with ancient tech, artifacts, gold, stuff like that. So
No,
what
yeah,
we see
and
here,
no, sorry, now you got me on to something. But the thing is, it's very hard area to reach, even with our current technology, because it's in a high current area. So the
Yeah.
only thing that we would make it for observational purposes would have to be like unmanned submersible vehicles. But continue.
Yes. No, like I said, here in Germany, in Wildesleben, we have something in Germany called Hünengräber, and that means they're called tombs of the giants. And till this day in Germany, there's a lot of literature about the beliefs back then, even till the 16th century, who built those structures, because you can find them everywhere in Germany. They are huge. Most of the times they're in forests, and these are the depictions, the renderings from back in the days, where people believed who the builders were. And now this is a regular human being here.
Oh yeah, the idea that they befriended a tribe of the
Right.
classical story, right? Yeah, that they befriended a tribe of friendly giants that helped them build these structures, so that the tiny humans could survive, because they cared about them and they felt indebted to them in one way or another. Like a lot of these giants were thought of to be, unfortunately, very stupid. No, not in the sense that of how we think of stupid. Like, of course, they were smart, but compared to the small humans, what the small humans lacked in physical strength, they made up for it in literal brain power. There is a reason. So there were always two types of categories of giants. There were those who were like very privileged bloodlines, that they were given unusually high mental faculties, along with the monstrous strength and size and longevity. But
Yes.
those were very few compared to the brutes that would constantly terrorize humans. And it was very rare for you could say the tiny humans to befriend a tribe of giants, unless they were very lucky.
And in this area, you find hundreds, if not thousands, of these, again, similar to Göbekli Tepe, huge stone slabs. And they're usually also kind of almost guarding an entrance to a subterranean level. And yeah, sure enough, they went down there and they found thousands of tools, of jewelry, of little artifacts, of a lot of stuff that was buried beneath those giant slabs as well. And again, these don't look too heavy on those pictures, But if you see the extent of these structures and how they were built, and again, aligned to certain constellations, you start asking yourself, how is this possible? Because now look at this. This is just one part of...
Wow.
Yes, and again, this is completely built. This is completely excavated, and beneath you have tunnel systems, you have subterranean access, you have all sorts of... Look at this. Sorry, it's close.
They seem to have been marked as... Seems like a marking for like a sacred place. You know, like it's giving off those vibes that, you know, maybe this place was sacred to somebody long ago, and so they made a monument, a very primitive but long-lasting monument of...
Again, look at the proportions also. Like, this is a human being. Look how small he is compared to these incredible stone slabs. Yeah? And we can find them also in Bretagne, at the dolmens, the menhirs of Karnak. We can find them in Sardinia. We can find these structures all over Europe. And again, a lot of these entrances, like in Newgrange as well in Ireland, a lot of these entrances, even though they look very rudimentary and rough and raw in the way they're built, they are actually perfectly aligned and pointed to midsummer solstices, to celestial events, to align to whether it's Vega, the stars Vega or Cygnus. And all these structures were somehow reflecting constellations or celestial events, which is absolutely crazy because, again, we're talking about very heavy structures. So if for regular tribe folks, it was important to kind of immortalize that, they would have done like a way easier job, right, than taking these enormous stones and trying to move them and align them. Here, again, really, really big structures that they found. And again, excavated tunnel system. You see the wall back here. It's absolutely crazy how massive and how far spread and ramified they are over geography in northern Germany. And again, they themselves in their own folklore say these are places of burial, but burial for these people didn't mean that people were just kind of buried there. It was a place of transition. Again, like ancient Egyptians, like the people of the Altai Mountains. And never forget, the first lunar observatory was found in the Altai Mountains, the Erkagai Mountains, right? And it has been said that that part of that lunar observatory was also built by giants. So we have the combinations of these ancient structures that are impossibly to build nowadays. We have the tale that is heavily linked to the giants, and we have this narrative of this constellation of Cygnus that will help them to pass in the afterlife. Very, very interesting.
No, yeah. I mean, I think, I got nothing. Like, I think we talked about everything we wanted to talk about today, right? Like, it's crazy. We somehow finished it on time, and maybe a little bit over time. But like,
to be honest, I never thought we could do it in such a short amount of time. But we already found our groove.
No, yeah, definitely. Like, we're already used to talking about this, so yeah, yes, Brett. They really did miss something. I don't know what's up with them, but hey, they need to go back and redo their homework. I'm just saying, like, they need to stop getting all mad that they got a 65 out of 100. Okay, like, go study more, scrub. That's my opinion.
But yeah, I think we've wrapped it up for today. I think we gave people like something to think about. This is we're not claiming to be scientists again. Disclaimer: Dragon Slayer commentaries, the COACHMC. We're just bigots. We're just travelers. We're curious. We're just going through the epoch of time, and we just want to discover stuff. We don't want to just live lives where we don't ask ourselves certain things. And sometimes it can be a curse. Sometimes it's a blessing. But to us, it's just, it's a well of creativity, of exchange. And if it's just for the reason of coming together also with the creative community and kind of dig into those stories and kind of extract something for ourselves. We're not here to kind of, build the ultimate theory of the universe, how everything was done, or the ultimate conspiracy theory. It's just an exchange of knowledge and just a broaden of historical horizons. That's it.
No, yeah. I mean, I always say, like, the more we know about our past, I would say the brighter the future will be. The less we know about our past, the darker it will become. So right now we're at this precipice, if you will, where
Yes,
we're
for
we're
sure.
in a we're about to enter this free fall into a very nice pillow. But until then, we're gonna be stuck midair as
Oh
soon as
yeah.
we start falling. When all this stuff comes out little by little. I'm not saying it'll come out all in one go, or if everything will be revealed all at once. Hell, we might be dead before we figure everything out. But hey, at least we
Maybe.
figure out a good portion.
Yeah.
It will be a very interesting time period. And with everything that's happening with
What should we cover next?
yeah.
What do we have in mind? You have an
Ooh,
idea already, or should
man, I got
maybe chat
honestly,
lets us know what they want to know
yeah,
about the past? If there's a certain topic
yeah.
that
Hmm.
intrigues them
Yeah,
specifically, we
let us know
definitely.
in the comment what bizarre topics you would like us to cover next, because we honestly feel like you, the audience, should get our best opinions on the weirdest of topics. That's what we're here for. And don't worry, one we will come up for a name for our weirdness, but not yet. That's in the works. But I'm just telling y'all, come up, let us know in the comments what you want us to talk about next. And until next time, I just want to say, everybody, Namaria. That's
Ah,
be well in Quenya, by the way.
I know, I know.
For you Lord of the Rings nerds. I say it all the time in my videos.
Thank you. It's good pronunciation also. Thank you so much, man, Dragon. It's been like always a pleasure, an honor, and also to my soul, it feels great to have a warrior of light out there, somebody who asks questions, who is knowledgeable, and somehow like a decent human being like you are. It's great to kind of exchange and grow together. So thank you so much for borrowing me your time. Definitely thank you also to the chat being here. Thank you so much, Pat. Thank you, Rosita. Thank you so much to Ryan, of course, showing up. Thank you to all the people present on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you, Sonia, for being here. Lisa, Annie, and the Wee Pillar. All these beautiful people stopping by. I hope you found interest and value in our storytelling and in our research. We're definitely gonna continue doing this and probably gonna expand the material in our universe a bit more even in the future. Who knows, right? So definitely look out for this unholy duo.
No, I think it's crazy. So Brett mentioned something here. I'm not sure. You said verification cylinders, so I've tried to look into it. I think he's talking about the cylinder seals that like these cylinder seals that talk
The
about these
Sumerians.
of the Sumerians. Yeah, I think so. So
Yeah.
you want us to cover like the whole Anunnaki thing, Brett? That's a suggestion?
Is that a
If that's the case,
suggestion?
we can go into cylinder seals of like all these cylinder seals that are found everywhere. Yeah, we can definitely try going over that. Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. And just to be sure, leave it as a comment as soon as the stream's over, so that we don't forget. We do take every comment into consideration for suggestions, so we really appreciate that.
So that's said. Thank you so much, guys, for stopping by. I think that's a wrap for Open Class Doodles episode 24. Trade culture. It's yeah. We definitely trade culture gives us it's the birth of the chambers of commerce and how the commercial trade routes of the East India Trading Company and the Southeast Asian Trading Company from the Netherlands, from the Dutch people, kind of conquered the world, and all the implications of the City of London commerce. Super interesting. We definitely can take a look at that. Love being here. Thank you so much. We love it as well to serve you this content. Definitely stop by next Thursday. It's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think I'm gonna have White on the show where we're gonna discuss the next song. We're just gonna take a look into songs, song structure, song building, beautiful melodies, and what message should we get out of there. And we're looking forward to having you again for another deep dive into history and all the implications and conspiracy theories And kind of this alternative research, it's super funny. Again, it's about storytelling, guys, because as actors, as performers, as creators, as artists, we are collecting these stories. We are just a reflection of these experiences. We are the catalysts that kind of, we go through these types of informations. We imagine things happening there, and true or not true, it's just a way to kind of, you know, keep us alive, keep our imagination alive, and reaching out to the universe and trying to kind of decipher the code of God and the Almighty and that everything that brought us together. Look at our body. It's a miracle already. Every single human body is a miracle already happening. Such an incredible intrinsical design, and everything functions on this planet. So we just should, you know, cherish and enjoy this privilege of being alive and being able to do this research. So thank you so much, Dragon Slayers. Thank you so much to the chat. Thank you so much to the Facebook, Instagram crowd. See you next time. Of course, every Saturday, I'm going to be part of an incredible panel of other incredible artists and bigots with my fellow companion over here, Dragon Slayer Commentaries, and Ryan Roger Athey joining us at the Saturday Night Hypnosis craziness that happens there. Episode 85 is coming up next Saturday, which is absolutely insane as well. And yes, you left an autistic rant. One of your oh yeah, I'm gonna look into that. Thank you so much. So you see, like Dragon Slayer said, good of reminding me. Yeah, I saw that. I will respond to that. There's definitely very interesting stuff coming up your way as well. And guys, I think now it's good on terms. Let that information kind of sink in, elaborate, send us some comments, leave us some likes, subscribe to all these channels, and see you the next time. See you next Thursday. And now you're ready to perform. See ya!
Bye!